I think we're going to call the meeting to order. 7:05. I'll stand for pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Fox. Here. Cory.
Here.
Kruse. Here. Huckle.
Absent.
Kenyon.
Here.
Kirk.
He's absent. He's at Mason's meeting.
Yep. Kruse.
Here.
Wojciechowski.
Absent.
Patton.
Absent. He's at a volleyball tournament.
Reis.
Absent.
Weiss.
Here. Reis is expected to be in. So all that are absent are
Oh,
excused.
Zelenak. Here. Here. He has Bryan.
Oh, you've got an old copy. Sorry. It's got everything else on it. Sorry about that. Approval agenda of November 6, 2013. I'd like to amend the agenda. I'd like to put the presentation by Brittany Hoeksema of Michigan Main Street Center right after committee reports. That way she can get on her way and drive to where she needs to go next. Anybody else? If everything's good, then we'll go ahead and,
Are you just that amendment we're making right now?
yeah, we want to try to keep it under 2 hours today. She's got an hour-long presentation.
Okay.
We can discuss anything else needs to be discussed at next meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Anybody? Approval of minutes of October 2nd, 2013, regular meeting. So I'll make a motion to approve them. And
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What are we supposed to say? I support now, or what is the rule?
Well, they said on a motion, you should always second the motion,
Oh,
not
okay.
support it, because it doesn't mean you support it, it just means you want to
Second.
discuss it.
Second. Great.
Okay, so that passes. Do we have any public comment? No public comment? The public comment period is closed. I do not have any correspondence. I guess now might be an appropriate time to I've not had correspondence, but I have had maybe somewhere between 7 and 10 members of the community approach us about what we're doing here, and everybody seems to be real supportive and are very happy that we're moving ahead with things. So it's not necessarily correspondence, but it's nice to hear that we're making a difference out there. Committee reports, we don't have any, and then we'll just move on to the presentation by Brittany Hoeksema from the Michigan Main Street Center.
Hello. I'm going to grab my water real quick because I may need that. How are you guys this evening? I was kind of hoping real quickly, because I don't want to monopolize your time, but if the folks on the DDA board could introduce themselves and just kind of explain to me your correlation and how you fit with downtown. If you're a business or property owner, or if you do own a business, what type of business you have, that'd be really helpful for me. Want to start?
Melissa Zelenak, I'm the chamber representative, and I also publish the local newspaper.
Perfect.
Randy Weiss, I'm a business owner, RW Energy. We do commercial heating and cooling throughout the state.
Great.
Michelle Fox. I own an old-fashioned five and dime store in the center of downtown Central Lake.
Cool.
And I'm Cory Hoeksema, and I have a computer repair shop. I'm also vice president of the Central Lake Historical Society and DDA chair.
Tom Kenyon, I'm one of the owners of Fudgies, homemade fudge and ice cream.
Explains that.
And Taffy.
And got it.
Ken Kruse, I'm village president and also serve on the planning commission.
Great.
Come on in. We have a chair.
And you're on it?
Yeah, I'm Weiss, I'm the secretary of the Mission Consider.
Great.
This is Bryan Reis.
Hi.
Hello. And his connection to downtown, he's an entrepreneur.
And what's the population, if you don't mind me asking?
952
952.
in the village.
In the village, great. So, as Cory mentioned, my name is Brittany Heskew. I'm the organization specialist for the Michigan Main Street Center. That doesn't mean I organize things. I'm not going to come and clean your house. It's not like Molly Maid. It's different. I'm a former Main Street manager. Prior to coming to Michigan Main Street, I just have been with Michigan Main Street for about 2 years now. Prior to that, I was the DDA Main Street manager for lots of communities across, not lots, I shouldn't say lots, 3 communities across the state. Iron Mountain, Scottville, which is 1,200, so not quite your guys' size, but close. And then Old Town Lansing, which is a arts, like boutique arts district in downtown Lansing. So run the gamut from, west side to urban area to way up in the UP, big, little, all over the place. And so I always think this kind of stage of things for communities is a really exciting time. This is kind of the fun part for me, is kind of explaining to you guys what Main Street is about and kind of getting you excited to see past what you have. I do have to say, though, I do come up to this area not only for work, but to vacation as well every once in a while, and I hadn't been familiar with this particular community. And so I was asking some friends that vacation in the area, and oh yeah, it's just this itty bitty little town and this and that, and it's real cute, but it's itty bitty. And then I got here, and it's definitely, I think, a much more robust community than I think I was expecting. And let me tell you, I see all kinds. Like, I see all sorts of communities. And I was trying to see through Google Earth, like, what I was getting myself into, which really doesn't do your town justice, let me tell you. So I was really pleased to come here, though it was in the dark, to see some great density, not a lot of strip, not a lot of sprawl that you have to compete with, not a ton of vacancy, some really cute historic buildings, so all good things, which makes me really happy, because then it gets me excited to get to come back and work with you guys more and more.
You should see it in the daylight.
I know. They say there's a lake or something. All I could see was dark. So this is a very, very basic presentation of what Main Street is, because I figured, though you guys have made an application at the associate level, and you're welcome to move wherever you like if it helps. Though you guys have already made an application to move forward with the associate level, you never really got an opportunity to really find out what the associate level is all about. So instead of getting you guys working towards the next level of Main Street, I figure just a primer on what the heck you got yourself into is a good idea, right? So I can't do that without talking about the importance of downtowns. And people always talk about downtowns and the importance of downtowns. They talk about all the squishy stuff, right? Like, it's the identity of your community, and it's the hub of culture, and it's where everyone comes together and everyone loves the heart of downtown. It's all very squishy, wishy-washy stuff that really, the bank doesn't loan to squishy stuff. Like, nobody is financing squishy. So I never like to talk, though that's why I enjoy my job, it's not really what I like to talk about when I talk about the importance of downtowns. Downtowns historically were all these things. They were the center of your community and the identity of your community, but they were also the highest concentration of property values, of tax base, of jobs in a community. When you look at how cities and villages and any municipality, regions, how they function financially, taxes come in and services go out, that was done with the idea that there was going to be a strong core to this, and that you were going to have the revenues from that tax base and that strong, healthy concentration of jobs in that downtown that was going to make all the other things work. So even after 50 to 100 years of disinvestment in downtowns, the National Main Street Center, my boss's boss's boss, they've done studies across the country and found that even the most degraded downtowns still retain the highest concentration of property values and tax base and jobs. So you guys don't really have a lot of sprawl in your community, but I was working in Owasso and they're like, well, we're just Owasso, our downtown, we really can't compete with the hospital and Baker College and some of the big employers in their area. And I had them count up all the number of employees that they had in all the small businesses, the mom and pop shops they had in their downtown. And sure enough, they had more than Baker College that was headquarters in their downtown or in their city. And so, even if you look at, you're always chasing the next big box store, the next big employer, but where the real traction is just nurturing the mom and pops, because that's what's really making your village and your local municipality cash flow. That's how that works. So after World War II, there was huge disinvestment in downtowns across the country. The American dream was no longer living above your business on Main Street. It was about living out in who knows where in the suburbs, and municipalities really kind of rolled out the red carpet and allowed for that. Instead of really focusing on that, maintaining that density, people's interest was to live out of town, and so we put water, sewer, roads, anywhere you wanted to go, we'd take it to you. And a lot of times we were really footing the bill for that, and so we were actually rolling out the red carpet, encouraging people to disinvest in what was essentially the heart of our community and the density, the tax base of our community. So people always blame the big box stores, that's why downtown failed. But the malls and the strip malls and things like that, they were just taking advantage of a business opportunity. This was not their fault that the disinvestment happened. They were you were driving everywhere you went, and so they created a consumer experience that translated well to a vehicular type of lifestyle. So they're not the bad guy. They just were capitalizing on a situation, which is hopefully something that we can do now with the Main Street program. So downtowns did a lot of really weird, silly stuff to try and compete with malls. Some communities took on themes. We definitely don't encourage themes. Your theme is exactly what caused this community to be settled in the first place. That's the best theme. You don't even have to make it up. It's the real thing. Also, cities put roofs on their downtown, thinking that if we could just kick people out of the elements, then they would buy my product. At no point looking at whether what I'm selling is either a product worthwhile to be selling or if anybody actually wanted to buy what I was trying to hustle. It was just simply, they don't want to buy my things because they're outside, right? And so they put a roof on it. Muskegon completely had to demo most of their historic downtown because they put a roof on it. And then when they wanted to take the roof off, well, that didn't work out very well. So communities did a lot of really weird stuff. What's happened though is that the pendulum has swung in the other direction, and that people, particularly in the state of Michigan, we've done a lot of studies to try and figure out, because we are the only state that's seeing such high amounts of population loss, and on top of that, the population that is here is aging. And so when the state of Michigan tries to go out and recruit large companies to the area, it's people can identify all sorts of reasons why they don't want to come here, but what we're hearing from them is that we don't have the talent base to support the jobs that they need. And so our focus is no longer on trying to incentivize and give away tax abatements and things to these big corporations. It's about trying to create places that young people want to live in. And so we've asked these young people, done studies with MSU and U of M and all over the country to find out what these young people are looking for, and they're not looking for jobs. They're not looking for, probably should be looking for jobs. They're not looking for jobs. They're not looking, their answer just isn't Chicago. They just want to move to Chicago. That's not necessarily the case. What they're looking for is places with culture and walkability and recreational opportunities and niche industry. These are all things that even a place as small as Central Lake can offer. And so that was really encouraging for me, having worked with so many rural communities. You can compete just the same, it's just you need to find your niche and celebrate what you have. So now what's happening is that the pendulum has swung and now people are attracted to these traditional downtowns. And so now you see malls. This is Meyer in Grand Rapids. This is a mall in Lansing. I'm not sure where that is. But there's these kind of prefab experiences that are trying to replicate a traditional historic downtown. And so again, just like Gaylord, is it Gaylord or Grayling that has the Alpine? Gaylord. So instead of, trying to, again, manufacture an experience, we've got the corner market on this, right? Like we've got the real deal. And so how do we leverage that? Because people aren't dumb. I mean, people know when you're trying to, pull one over on them, right? And so hopefully we can leverage the fact that we do have the real deal in our community. So we can't take credit for the Main Street program. The Main Street program actually came from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And in the 70s, the National Trust, the way they approached historic preservation is if you had a historic building in your downtown and you came to them and you said, pretty please, this is really, really important, and you could make some case as to the historic significance of your building, they would grant the private property owner funds directly to fix up your historic property. Well, it's not very sustainable, right? Because anyone in this room who owns a historic building knows, you can do that one-time shot in the arm, but there's still maintenance every week sometimes of that historic building, right? So if there isn't a business paying rent to that landlord, then the landlord is never going to have the money necessary to maintain that investment that the National Trust just made, right? And if there isn't some sort of mechanism driving traffic to that business to buy the goods and services, then that business is never going to have enough money to pay the rent so that the property owner could maintain the historic building. And so it became this vicious cycle. And really all the National Trust was concerned with was historic preservation. They really didn't care about downtowns or downtown businesses. They just wanted to keep historic buildings standing. But the only people with less money than Main Street programs is historic preservation organizations, typically. And so they had to figure out a way to do it in a very sustainable way. And so they decided the highest concentration of historic buildings are in downtowns, so we'll just focus our energy on downtowns, and we'll do it using volunteer support, which is translated really well for communities, local, small municipalities that don't have the tax base to just pay to have everything done, like you find absolutely nowhere in Michigan. So Main Street is a grassroots and community and volunteer-driven strategy encouraging economic development through historic preservation. It's an approach. We're not coming in and starting a new organization in your community. Main Street is just a different way to approach what you're trying to do. You set your goals and objectives. You still work with your DDA plan or your TIF plan, whatever you said you're going to do with your DDA. You still take on all the goals that you wanted as an organization. It's just the way you approach this work is by taking on Main Street principles, which I'll talk about in a minute. What is most fundamental about it is that you're really including the community in every step of the process. So identifying what the goals are, that's done through community participation. Then coming up with the projects that are going to achieve those goals, that's done through committees that are made up of the community. And then the committees are actually doing the projects that are going to meet those goals. Everything from fruition to execution to, review is coming from the local community. This isn't about the state coming in and saying, you really should put a mall here and a building there and a sidewalk there. This is about what you want to do in your community. The other thing is whether you're a diehard preservationalist or you're a banker, we've really been able to kind of show the return on investment on either side, right? So this was started through historic preservation. But after 10 years in the Main Street program, and I've got a little flyer here, but after 10 years of Main Street and 35 years across the country, we've seen huge amounts of private investment. This is our 10-year anniversary flyer. We've seen huge amounts of private investment and net new jobs and net new businesses in all the communities that we're working with, not only in Michigan, but across the country for the National Main Street Center. And so now we're seeing DDAs and Chamber of Commerce and principal shopping districts, and I even had a gentleman who's building a mall in a cornfield call Main Street and say, we're really interested in our mall being part of the Main Street program. And I was like, close but no cigar. not really what we're in the business of doing. But that was actually really flattering because that means that we're doing something right in the communities that we're working with when these malls have everything going for them when they go to start up, but they want to use the Main Street principles, and so that's kind of flattering. So here's some of the information. This is old information, but this is last year's return on investment. So the total private investment last year in just the 16 communities that we work with at the selected master level was $28 million. We've got,
Where does the 28 million private investment, you're talking about businesses that are, who are the private investors?
so the way we identify private investment is through any investment that's made in your buildings, either internal or external, or any private investment that allows for public infrastructure. So if you did a fundraising campaign to help pay for new benches in the downtown, that private investment in those type of projects would be included in the overall private investment. So this isn't the private investment into the Main Street program. This is programming that the local Main Street program has done in the local community, and this is the private investment that's been spurred because of that programming. So that's really that's the ruler that we use to decide whether or not we're having impact in the community. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to help create jobs and increase tax base and that sort of thing. So these are our measurements.
So if I throw a can of paint on my building, that's not included in something like that?
If
Or is it?
you paint your building, yes, and that's reported to us, then we include whatever the cost of that would
Even
be.
if I individually invest in my own building that
Yeah,
way? You're lumping that together with that?
yep.
Okay, I just want.
Yep, we have public improvement, public investment, private investment, volunteer hours, and the value of those volunteer hours, which we always calculate that. Because again, you can pay a contractor to do some of these things, but the idea is that you're going to exponentially increase your return on investment by engaging the community, because the community has all sorts of talents. They're willing to invest in their community because they want to see their home values increase. They want to see their businesses be successful. Not to mention they probably have way better ideas than we do at the state of Michigan, right? Because we don't know the community nearly as well as you guys do. You live here. So these are kind of the quantifiers that we use to decide how the local program is doing, but then also how we're doing as far as serving that local program. So these are the principles that I was talking about, and I'm going to try and go through these rather quickly. First is that it's comprehensive. So typically DDAs really focus on this design aspect or the public infrastructure of things. And we are really big on public infrastructure too, but we know that also needs to be balanced by 3 other areas. So going back to that historic property, if there's not a business in that building paying the rent, it doesn't matter what sort of initial investment you make in the building, you need some sort of mechanism to continue for that property owner to see some sort of continued revenue so they can maintain that investment and maintain the tax base in the community. So we really like to see programming being equally spread amongst these 4 key areas. And this is in Main Street, once you're in the associate level, this will be an overriding theme throughout your experience in the Main Street program. So it starts with not only the building and property development, but also historic preservation, the aesthetics of your downtown, and then marketing, both retail events and special events, but also tourism, and then volunteer management and fundraising so that you can kind of help support the programming that's going on in these other areas. So it's really important that it's comprehensive. I travel around a lot, as you guys are hearing, on my way in here, and oftentimes when I come to communities, they want to give me a tour of their town, particularly not in the dark usually. And they always want to show me what they've been up to, and oftentimes they want to tell me about their parking lots. And these are all the parking lots we've done, and there's not a business on the street, but the parking lots look fabulous. Or they'll tell me about all 111 events they're doing, but they haven't, the sidewalks are cracked, all the, Kingdom Come, and, the buildings look like they're vacant practically because they're falling down. And so it needs to be a balance in all areas. It's also incremental. It took 50 years to get in this situation. It's going to take 50 years to get back out. And so it's about moving the momentum in the right direction. I was working with a community and they were telling me about how the city had bought up, it was kind of a four corners type of downtown, and the city had bought all of the property in all four corners, bought up all the parcels. And I was like, well, that's a funny approach to downtown development. I've never seen that approach before. And they said, well, yeah, we just thought it would be really nice to assemble the property for the developer. So that way when the developer shows up, you know, we got all the property assembled for them. And, you know, I have yet to meet that billion-dollar developer that's just going to buy up your whole downtown and fix it all up for you. But I have worked with several communities, and actually myself been the manager in communities where it's one or two businesses and they kind of work together to kind of create a little bit of a niche and, you know, send customers back and forth, and then, you know, they kind of clean up the building next to them so that, and try and encourage one of their friends to move in there. So now they've kind of got, you know, a little bit of a, you know, a circular pattern going where people can actually kind of walk around and shop a little bit, and they start organizing events and things, and it's definitely much more organic. That's how it really happens. There's no little old lady that's gonna leave you millions and billions. I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, except in your community, apparently.
Yeah, right.
Except in this community, right? We just told you earlier. This is also about self-help. I told you I used to be a Main Street manager, and you know, we were very good at just rolling up our sleeves and getting it done. If we didn't like the AstroTurf that was on the side of the abandoned building, we went out there and we just took care of the AstroTurf in the night. And no, I don't encourage that sort of behavior. That is the kind of philosophy that, hey, the city manager was with me when I did it, by the way. So it's completely legal. Though you don't encourage that sort of behavior, that's sort of the mentality behind it. It's about identifying what your goals are, and then the community taking on activities that support those goals. So it's not haphazard, you know, ripping up AstroTurf by any means, but it is about the community kind of doing for them. When I was working in Old Town Lansing, some folks from Saline, Michigan wanted me to give them a tour of the community that I was the director for. Oh yeah, sure. So they're looking around at all of our gardens and our banners and baskets, and oh, those are so nice. How did you get those up there on the light poles? And I said, well, I got a ladder. And it sounded very flippant, but that was the truth. It wasn't about how did you do it. You know, we just did it, and that's how things got done in the community. And let me tell you, we were able to get a whole lot more done with our, you know, $10 and a smile, because we had a lot of folks in the community that were willing to just help get things done. It's about public-private partnership with the proper approvals, of course. I see the village president kind of squirming over there like, holy cow, there's going to be anarchy all of a sudden. So public-private partnership, every group in the community kind of has their own resources, right? So there's the business community, and they're constantly investing their money back into their business. So they get together every once in a while and talk about some retail events or advertising they could be doing, but they really don't have a lot of money to contribute to that because they're putting it back in their business, and that's what you want them to be doing, right? And then you have the city, and they may have or the local municipality, and they may have a small pot of funds to do things with, but it's very much typically a closed process where they don't have a lot of the participation of the business community or the residents in the community to really be able to see that dollar go extra further, or really have the input from the community as to how that should be played out. And then you have the coffee clutch in town, and they just get together once a week and have coffee and talk about everything and how they know best, and clearly nobody asked them, right?
No help.
You don't have that here?
Yeah, they don't help.
They never help. And so this is about getting all those people in kind of working towards the same goal. So everybody bringing their resources to the table, and everyone as a group saying, this is what we want to accomplish as a community, and then everyone putting their resources towards it. And so the business community bringing their networks of people, and the schools bringing their networks of people, and the city bringing, or the local municipality bringing whatever resources they can bring to the table, the connections with state government or different state agencies, to really kind of try and make sure that all the momentum is moving in the same direction. And that includes the Chamber and the Convention and Visitors Bureau too. This is about everyone kind of saying, okay, this is the direction we want to go in as a community, and how can each one of us bring those pieces together. It's about capitalizing on existing assets. Now, you're a very lucky community that you have some lakeshore apparently in your community that I can't see because it's dark out, but you know, I worked in a community, I worked in Scottville, Michigan. Is anybody familiar with Scottville, Michigan? Home of the Scottville Clown Band. We were 4 miles away from the lakeshore. So we were so close, yet so far away. And we were actually 4 miles outside of Ludington. And so, you know, it's easy to talk about capitalizing on existing assets and saying, oh, we have the lakefront, right? You know, we have water, we have a river. There's a lot of communities out there that don't have that, and Scottville was definitely one of them. And so I was there for 2 years, and we spent most of 2 years, I spent most of 2 years listening to them talk about Ludington, how, you know, we need to have arts, and we need to have this and that, and well, there wasn't an artist in town. I don't know what they were trying to do, and it wasn't until they really kind of realized that they were an agriculture community. You know, 80% of their industry was agriculture. And there was one artist. What do you think was the real asset in the community? And so once they kind of got past trying to mimic Ludington all the time and really celebrated the fact that they were just a bunch of farmers, we had some of the best events. The businesses had some of the best retail sales because it was driving the people in the community and in the region, but it was also much more honest to the people that they were trying to sell it to. And so we did this barn tour. We had people come from far away in Chicago to pay $15 to drive themselves from barn to barn. And then it ended in a gallery, which was a vacant building, in downtown Scottville, where we had like hay bales for people to sit on and stuff. And the people in the community loved it because that's something they could identify with, but the people from outside of the community loved it because it was real. This was not manufactured, right? So I always like to tell that story when talking about capitalizing on existing assets because it's too easy to be Boyne City. That's just cheating when you say, oh, capitalize on your waterfront. That's easy.
Nope, she had a Italian fest, did you see that?
No. What's that?
We were just kidding about making us Italian. We had
Italian Fest?
Look at
Yep,
that.
Italian Fest. This is an event I started in Iron Mountain, Michigan. If you've ever been to Iron Mountain, there's a huge Italian community up there to the point where I don't even know what they're saying half the time. There's the Northsiders, that's a strong Italian community, and they always start the event by singing the national anthem in Italian. It's actually, what's Izzo?
Tom Izzo.
Tom Izzo's grandfather that
Yeah.
sings the national anthem in Italian to kick off Italian Fest every year.
Oh,
I started this event in 2006, and it makes about $20,000 for their local Main Street program every year. In a town of 8,000, so it's a smaller community. So yeah, it's fun. There's also a grape stomp. Quality over quantity. So it's not about how many projects you're doing in your downtown, but how many projects have a real quality to them. So, you know, I started, when I came to Old Town Lansing, they were doing 111 events. Their Main Street program was doing 111 events, right? It was like every 3 days I was pouring beer for somebody, and I just wanted to go to sleep. So yeah, so 111 events. And so we had to take a look and say, how many of these events are communicating to our target market, reinforcing a brand, you know, who are we as a community, and how many of these events actually have a return for the business community or the Main Street program is making money? Because if somebody's not making money, we don't need to be doing this. And so we scaled it way back. Events are a really easy example, but you know, if you're going to give a sign grant to your downtown businesses, are you going to do, you know, vinyl, what are those trailer signs where you put the vinyl letters in them? They're good for some purposes, maybe not in a historic downtown. You know, are you going to pay for those, or are you going to pay for a nice historic, you know, perpendicular signs that are typical of a historic downtown? It's not about how many you did, but how many that are really quality products that you can be really proud of. They're going to be there for years and years moving forward. The one thing that I tell communities, especially when they're starting, so I've worked in 3 communities. 2 of the 3 communities, I was their first Main Street manager. I helped the community actually start the program from the ground up, like what you guys are doing right now. You know, I always say that writing a grant is really not that hard. And cold calling sponsors and developers, I did telemarketing telemarketing college for like 1 semester. It was hell, but it was fabulous prep work for working in this type of business because you could tell me no all day long and it really did not bother me. Because I used to be paid to do it. So cold calling developers and things like that, that's really not that hard either. Working with volunteers is a hoot, actually, most days. That sort of thing you can all learn. That's the easy part. Michigan Main Street and whoever you end up potentially getting as your Main Street manager someday, if that's the direction you go in, the thing that they can't create for your community is to convince you to believe you deserve more than what you have. I can do a song and dance all day long and teach you how to write grants and tell you what grants are out there and help you organize what your goals are for the next 10 years and help you figure out projects. I mean, I can help you steal projects from all over the state on what other communities are doing to bring back to this community, but I can't convince you that you should do anything if you don't believe you deserve anything. And so that was always the hardest part for me in starting these programs is because I would show up, I'm not from there, this isn't my town, and I'd be so excited about all the cool things we could do, and they just look at me and say, maybe in Lansing. Not up here in God's country. And I remember hearing that at the grocery store and thinking, what are you doing? So that is the one thing that I think you really need to take have a real understanding of both culture in your local community and really know if this is going to be right for your community. Action-oriented, we love studies, we love plans, we'll help you pay for plans, we'll give you more plans than you can even care for. I'm sure you'll hate some of the plans. You'll get so many through the Main Street program. But the thing of it is each of the plans are going to have action steps that we're going to hope and expect that are going to be implemented. And so every time we hire a contractor to come in and help write a plan for your community, we find the contractor that's going to be able to break it down into very small actionable items that are applicable for the capacity of your community. And every plan is going to be based on what you tell that contractor you want in your community. Again, it's not us saying what you need. But the thing of it is a market study or a downtown development plan or a parking study or a fund development plan or a communications plan, none of these things do anything for your community if they're not used. Like a market study, how often does the developer show up to your town and say, I'm ready to invest $1 bajillion. Can I see your market study? Like that's not how that happens. You have to use that study as a tool to get the developer to come to you. So it's always about taking action. What is the Main Street program? We are not a grant program, unfortunately. I don't show up with a giant check and balloons, though I wish I could, but that's not part of what my program does. There's lots of other state agencies that do that, and we will hook you up with as many as we can to try and funnel all the money to our Main Street communities, but our staff does not have access to any money. So now that we have that out of the way. But what we are is a tiered program of technical assistance. And so it's kind of the concept of teach a man to fish sort of thing. The state, just like any other municipality, is looking more and more at focusing their investments in communities that have the capacity to use that investment as a catalyst for more things. And so we like to think at Main Street that we're helping communities set up local, sustainable organizations that can be doing economic development and downtown development and can be examples of where to focus those funds because they know that those communities have the capacity to make those funds go a lot further. So it's a 3-tiered program. The first tier, which is the associate level, and that's what you guys have applied for through your very, very new DDA, has applied for the associate level. That's a 1-year commitment. All it is basically saying that you're going to participate for the next year. I think it's actually, no. So it just says that you're going to participate in the associate level for 1 year. There's no real requirements outside of that. You do have to submit, I think, 2 reports. The reports are like, did you learn anything at the last training sort of thing. It's very, very basic. There's no wrong answer. Just as long as you turn in a piece of paper with your name on it, you get a grade type of deal. Right, it's my kind of test, for sure. So the associate level, I often refer to this as kind of the tire kicker level, and I actually think I explained it as the tire kicker level when I talked to you on the phone. It's very much a level where you can find out what Main Street is and find out if it works for you, right? Because there's some communities that would rather just pay to have things done in their community than to reach out to use volunteers or to reach out to their local community. I have never had the privilege to just pay to get things done in any community that I worked in. So, you know, for those communities, yeah, Main Street probably isn't right. So, you know, it's an opportunity to kind of kick the tires, find out what's going on. From there, you have the opportunity, and you can re-up in the associate level as many times as you want. So if after this first year you say, you know what, we still don't feel like we have our ducks in a row quite yet, you can just keep re-upping. That's fine with us. Each year at the end of your associate level, you have the opportunity to either continue an associate for another year or complete an application to move up to the select level. And that's kind of where the rubber meets the road sort of deal. That's a very intensive 5-year commitment. And the idea there is that we're coming in and we're helping change all the principles of how you do business to a more Main Street model. Again, using the 4 committees, focusing your work comprehensively, making sure that the community is really driving the program as opposed to it being more of a staff-driven type approach to downtown development. Like I said, it's a very intense 5 years. One of the requirements is that you do have a full-time Main Street manager on staff for these 5 years. The way we often refer to it is, you know, the mall has a manager, your downtown should too. And when I was a manager, in Scottville we had a few hundred volunteers. In Old Town Lansing we had a few thousand. And yeah, and I often refer to it as a manager, I'm only going to be able to do so much with my time, right? And I'm only going to be able to do so many projects, there's only so many cold calls to developers, so many grants I can write with my time, right? But if I am, instead of spending my time doing the projects, now managing the volunteers and making sure that each of the volunteers have the resource to help write that grant or have the resources to help do a downtown cleanup or work with the DPW on X, Y, and Z. If I'm working with these volunteers and giving them the tools and the skill set to be able to do that work locally, not only is that information going to stay in your local community and not leave as your manager turns over every so many years, but you're also going to be able to do that much more programming, right? So when I was in Old Town, I could only do this much with my day, but if I spent my day managing the 1,300 volunteers, I was able to do 1,300 times more than what I was going to be able to do with my time as a manager. So this is a 5-year commitment. Then you have the opportunity, after 5 years, you can either be done and graduate and keep on doing what you do, or you can move forward with the master level, which is a 2-year commitment that you can re-up as many times as you like. And this is more like a maintenance level. So Calumet, Howell, Marshall, Boyne City, they're all in this master level. And that's when, you know, you need a new market study, it's out of date, we come in and we do one for you. Your board is turned over, you need a board training, we'll come in and do one. And all of this at all 3 levels is free to the community. So we have 40 communities currently that we work with across the state, and hopefully lots more with the applications that just came in for the associate level. We cover the entire state with the exception of Oakland County. For whatever reason, Oakland County has their own Main Street program and they don't want to be part of ours. That's fine. They're a good group of folks. So the intent of the associate level, like I said, is to not only help you guys understand what Main Street is and help you decide if you want to take that very important leap to the select level, but we also want to help educate, and I'll send a copy of this presentation to Cory to circulate to the board. But we also want to help give your local Main Street or your local volunteers the tools to help communicate the downtown efforts to the surrounding community and then build some consensus, right? So whether you move forward with the Main Street program or not, you need to have momentum from the local community to be successful in the select level. So at the select level, we're going to come in and we're going to do a whole lot of really intense training, and so we need to know that there's a volunteer base there to receive all of these great services. And so at that associate level, we really try and focus our training on not only explaining what Main Street is, but helping give the tools to the local community on how to start communicating this opportunity to their community and start building some consensus and some participation so you can build that momentum to be successful in the select level. These are the parts, the pieces and parts that are involved in the associate level. First is the webinar. It's a real quick webinar with probably 1 or 2 people from the board that would really just go over what the next year is going to look like. So go over dates and times and a lot of the logistical housekeeping stuff. Then we have 2 trainings that are offered 3 different times in 3 different locations. Does that make sense? So 2 different types of trainings, and each one is offered 3 different times in 3 different locations. So depending on where you're at in the state, everyone at least once draws the short stick, right? Like everyone gets their turn to be closest to the hosting community, and we try and spread them out all over the state. The first one is basic training, and the other one is Main Street in Practice. Both of them are a training that's split between Michigan Main Street staff and then a existing Main Street community, either a select or master level community. So that way you're not just hearing our propaganda, you're actually hearing from the local community what their experience is, stuff that maybe we can't tell you because we shouldn't tell you. It'd be bad practice to say this is really what happens. I think it's a very applicable learning experience because you're hearing it directly from the local community. And we oftentimes invite chamber folks and people from the local municipality, DPW, historic preservation, so that you can hear all aspects of what the experience was, not just from the manager. So that's those 2 trainings here. We also give you access to our Main Street listserv, which is Main Street communities all over the state. So you can kind of ask questions about what's going, what you could be doing locally. You can share documents back and forth. And then we offer 1 day where we'll come in and work in the local community. We have to limit it to just 1 day because there's so many associate communities that we could spend a lot of time in a lot of cities real quick. But you can do anything you want with that day. Typically it's, well, I won't get into that, but you can do anything you want with that day. So I've had communities that have said, nope, we just want you to come in and do a presentation similar to this. I've had communities that said, no, we want to use you all day long. I do a fundraising training with the board in the morning. I do a presentation to all of the large employers and foundations and banks in the afternoon. So trying to drum up money for the program. I've done presentations in a church on the pulpit, which I swear was a unique experience. I've done television where I've done this presentation into a television camera, so they can put it on a television show. All sorts of weird things. You can use us however you like for the day. Whether it's training or just us going out and shaking hands on the street, helping you raise awareness on what's going on. Each training is a day-long training, so those 2 trainings that I talked about, they're day-long. And again, they're free to the community. However, you guys have to pay whatever your travel costs are. So for Boyne City, that could be pretty easy. If it's going to be in Lansing, that might be a different story. So if there's hotel or gas or anything like that, that's up to you guys, but everything else is free. So some of the expectations, you do have to participate in a full year. There's 2 reports, like I said, super easy. And you have to go through the associate level before you can move up to select. You can't just, skip. We have communities that try and do that. The expectation, or what we look at in the applications in your associate level, which is probably good to know now since you've already submitted it, is we look for a traditional downtown. Like I said, I already looked you up on Google Maps, so I already confirmed that you had a large enough density of a downtown to meet our expectations, and that you have an organization that's willing to be the hosting organization, or the lead organization, which clearly is your DDA. I always get asked, is this a rural or urban type of program? Who is this designed for? I've worked in Scottville and I've worked in Old Town Lansing, 1,200 and 200,000. The one big thing they had in common is it was a whole lot of folks who wanted really cool things for their community, but just didn't have the funds to just do it outright. And I think they ended up with a much better product because of it, personally. Being a resident of Old Town Lansing, I would have to say. So your application, the due date has passed, but you have submitted it. We have a meeting early January, or excuse me, we have a meeting in December to review all the applications, and then we'll be making announcements in January. February is when we'll do the webinar, and then the first trainings will be March, April-ish. I will say that regardless of what happens with you guys moving forward with the Main Street program, I've spent the past 2 years of my life trying to get the National Main Street Center to host a conference in Michigan. We have one of the largest and probably the second best Main Street program in the country. However, all we ever hear about is Detroit. And so I spent a year putting together a proposal to the National Main Street Center to get the National Main Street Conference in Detroit in 2014, in May 2014. So we'll actually be hosting the conference. So that's as close as this conference is ever going to get to you folks. And so I'm trying to encourage all of the communities, whether you move forward with Main Street or not, to consider it, because there are some certain days of the conference that are free, because we really just want people to, if people just walk away with a better understanding of what they can do in their local community to preserve historic buildings or support downtown businesses, or raise funds or engage their community, we consider that a win. So definitely look into that as well. So I think that is everything. Yeah, I talked about benefits, talked about exponential return, I talked about all that stuff. Yeah.
Just a question about
Sure.
the application process. How likely is it that an application is approved? I mean, do you not?
For the
accept-
select or associate level,
Associate.
I don't see any problem with you guys being approved.
Here are the criteria.
The criteria for approval for the associate level is that you have a traditional downtown and that there is a hosting organization that's willing to participate in the trainings.
So we're good.
Yeah. Typically, when we look at the application, the information that's included in the application, a vast majority of it is baseline information for us to know what we're dealing with when we come in to work with the community. But then I'll tell you, so we don't make the decision who comes in and who doesn't. That's our advisory board that's made up of people from the State Historic Preservation Office, the Michigan Municipal League, organizations all over the state. And they tell us who they're gonna let in and who they're not gonna let in. I will tell you, 90% of the conversation, the discussion that goes on about those applications are based on whether or not they have a traditional downtown. Because we don't wanna get in the business of helping strip malls be better strip malls. So that's really the big criteria.
How many traditional downtown communities do we have in the state of Michigan? And how many of them are already participating in this?
We have 40 communities in the Main Street program currently, and how many traditional downtowns, I have no idea. I mean, lots.
I mean,
I
probably.
would say hundreds, if not. The thing with Michigan though is we have so many municipalities, and because we have townships and counties and that sort of thing, that not all of the municipalities that we have in the state of Michigan have any sort of traditional downtown. You know what I mean? I'm thinking like,
I was in Dodge City yesterday,
okay,
Michigan.
Mhm.
I never heard of Dodge City until yesterday.
okay,
So I had to ask, I was in Harrison, which I heard of Harrison,
right.
to get directions to get to Dodge City. But I didn't actually see what I'd call a downtown
Right.
in Dodge City. So I doubt they would actually.
A lot of times, communities that don't make it into the associate level, or make it into the associate level, and then we just say, look, this is a good learning experience for you, but you're never gonna make it into select, is sometimes what happens too. Our communities that, there used to be a downtown there, and they've ripped everything out, and there's already been infill development, and the infill development isn't zero lot line, it isn't, so the buildings aren't right up to the sidewalks, they have parking in front. Usually there's no, the buildings aren't butted up, so they don't have a shared common wall, a shared wall. Things like that, that through a lot of times zoning code wouldn't allow another traditional downtown building to be built there. But we can't, it's really hard for us to try and create a downtown experience with like a big boy, which is one of the buildings that we had right in the middle of their downtown. They had torn down everything historic there. So our program was started by the National Trust, we have to respect that. Is there any other questions? I feel pretty confident in your guys' application. Again, you know, they always ask, the big discussion is always around the traditional downtown, so I wouldn't worry about that. I think, you know, I would say next steps for you guys is thinking about, you know, who would participate in those trainings, maybe gathering contact information for folks in the community that are interested in attending some of those trainings so that you can disseminate that information to the community about the training dates and so that way you can always have fresh faces going. You know, sometimes just 1 or 2 people go, sometimes communities get lots of people go, and it's really it's completely up to you.
So February, we know?
You should know January. You should know early January. And I'm always usually on the inside trying to push the people above me to hurry up and make the announcement because, you know, there's a certain amount of momentum in the local community after you put all that work into the application that I think I don't like them to stall about making the announcement. But I'm low on the totem pole. So, is there any other questions?
What would the volunteers do? Paint buildings?
Gosh, any number of things. So, you know, you name it, and we've seen volunteers do it. Some volunteers have gone as far as helping to recruit businesses to the downtown. Some volunteers are volunteering like actual professional skill sets. Some volunteers are just coming down and pouring beer at the local festival for a few hours. It really just depends. But there's the nice thing about the Main Street program, you know, I get from some communities like, well, our community won't volunteer for that. We don't have a volunteer type community. And I think, you know, the Main Street program, there's the board, and then there's committees, and then there's usually like ad hoc committees that are working on just a particular project. And then there's volunteers who just say, well, you know, I'd rather lop my arm off than sit on a committee, but call me if you have this task that you need done. And so there's lots of different ways to participate. But the volunteers really do everything from like more superficial like community cleanup type activities to Wayland, Michigan has been spending the past 2 years putting together very sophisticated business recruitment packets and materials and has actually identified businesses within the region that are at the capacity to open up second and third locations, and they've started to develop communication with these different businesses to show properties and things. Yeah, it's any number of things. So I'm going to leave the extras here of these flyers so you can use them when talking to folks in the community, and a few of these as well. And if you have any other questions, I'll leave some business cards too. So feel free to contact me with any additional questions. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very much. We appreciate it. I guess, do anybody want to say anything about the presentation, any impressions, any members from the audience want to say anything? I'd be interested to hear.
That was a good presentation, I appreciated it.
Oh, of course, my pleasure.
How will Main Street fit in with like our TIF and our big, or, you know, our long-term plans? I mean, we've got all these new things that we need to accomplish as a new group. How is this gonna, what priority is this compared to the other things we have to do?
Well, it's a way of doing things versus what we're doing. So developing a downtown plan is probably in our agenda today, to actually go ahead and proceed with that. This is just a way to approach that. This is an approach versus what we're doing. So it's a concurrent thing. It's something that we do as we're doing, at least my understanding is, as we're doing this stuff. And we continue on with the business that the board has at hand. As we're getting the trainings, we apply that to this business.
So our plan, you know, our plan as a DDA could be that we want to restore the downtown and revitalize it, right? And so then the Main Street program would be the tool that we would utilize to accomplish that, correct?
Yeah.
with their trainings and they can
Their
point us the right
resources.
direction,
Like a resource.
resources.
Yep.
Yeah, we can get the information that we need to proceed with. There may be grants out there for stuff that we're just not aware of. And that would be something that maybe we can get a historical society with doing something like that. So there's just a way to, it's just a way to do things.
It's like you said earlier, that you don't have a pocket full of money for us, but you do have the organizational skills and you can get us aligned to move forward.
And I will say, just another point that I always forget, but is probably a good thing to mention, is that though our program within the state of Michigan doesn't have funds, we work with all the other state agencies to earmark funds for our Main Street communities, because again, they know that Main Street communities have a internal mechanism to actually utilize these funds to their highest and best use. And so some agencies will give extra points to Main Street communities on applications, but others, like facade grants through Michigan Economic Development Corporation, will just straight up say, this $3 million we're only going to give to Main Street communities.
So it gives us a better likelihood of getting funds when we apply for grants. Just an extra badge.
But going back to your statement, all DDAs have to have a DDA plan. That's a requirement. And so all of the Main Street programs that we work with that are also DDAs, they're still fulfilling their obligations of that DDA plan, because that is your obligation to the taxpayers by creating this TIF, that you have to do programming in the areas that you've identified. The only difference is that they're just using the Main Street committees to help do the work, is the only difference.
You were hired as the manager in Scottsville and downtown Lansing and Iron Mountain. So was part of your job also part of the DDA then, in a sense? And was that community paying you a salary or a wage monthly, or how is that determined? And
Sure. So in both Scottsville and Iron Mountain, they were DDAs that were functioning as a Main Street program. So they called themselves DDA Main Streets. In Old Town Lansing was a 501c3. And so I was paid as the executive director of that nonprofit. I was hired by the local municipality. So I was a city employee, but I worked for the DDA. So I did not answer to the city manager. I reported to the board president. I was an employee of the DDA because I was paid as a DDA TIF. Some Main Street managers are just, that's it, they're just employees of the DDA. Others are contractors of the DDA. So instead of having to hire them on as a full-time employee, you hire them on a year-long contract or 2-year-long contract that you can re-up as often as you like. Does that answer your question?
a little bit. At the level that we're at, that's not necessary
Right.
yet.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And at the associate level, it's not expected or required or, yeah, no, I would agree, it's completely premature for this community. But we do expect that when you do jump to that select level or make that jump to the select level, that there is someone in place. And part of the training at the associate level is around fundraising. And like I said, a lot of the communities use their one day with us to bring me in to talk about fundraising, because that's my background. So I would agree, premature for this community, but there are mechanisms.
Did you meet quite a few of the foxes in the Scottsville area?
Probably,
Are you from, say your maiden name?
I'm married to Fox.
Okay.
She's not gonna claim it. I met plenty of clowns though. I think that I realized that my podiatrist also moonlighted in drag in the clown band, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because they're not actually dressed as clowns. I don't know, I should probably mention that part. They don't dress in clowns, they dress in drag. Which is a thing. I know it's weird.
And they're famous.
At night.
Sometimes during the day,
Oh, that's bad.
but usually intoxicated.
Does anybody else have any more questions? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Of
Watch
course,
out for
thank
deer
you.
while you're driving.
Of course, I know.
All right, I guess if you have any more questions about that, we'll move on to old business. Want to want to discuss this Google Drive, but before I do that, I do have application for Main Street Center. I do have a copy of our application here. I would like, I think this will help and let everybody look at it. It's like 100 pages. I didn't want to print 12 copies. My printer's starting to die
I got
out.
one too, so. very good.
Well, this has got the pictures. It's got the maps and everything. These pictures are ones that my printer screwed up on, so they got put into our copy. Whereas I was limited to 20 pictures and handed it out. And it was a better binder and everything was full color when I sent it down there. And this is just what I had, kind of a leftover thing.
But you shared this with us on Google Drive, right?
Oh yeah, it's on there. It's on there.
Right.
Everything is.
Yeah.
But I don't know that everybody has access to Google Drive if they may not check it on a regular basis. We printed it on heavy paper. I'd like to thank the people that helped with this. My wife Lisa, Mr. Kruse helped out on a couple things. Mr. Reis helped out quite a bit. Mr. Keller, is it Jim Keller, the tax assessor, he helped get some of these numbers. The Chamber of Commerce sent me some dates and stuff that I had requested. I thank you guys for that. I think I'm forgetting somebody. Brittany, thank you for answering my questions. And Sarah Christensen with the Northern Lakes Economic Alliance. They all, everybody kind of came together and helped out, put this all together. So a big thank you to everybody. I didn't do any particular process in picking out the pictures downtown. I had a limited time to do it. It took a lot longer than I thought, probably about 30 to 40 hours. By the time I actually tracked everybody down, talked to people, got the pictures, got everything printed, assembled, and we spent a weekend, my wife and I, putting everything together, printing everything out in the color printer. We just went through the downtown area, took pictures, streetscape views of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it turned out pretty well. I tried to capture some of the historic buildings, so that's there for everybody to look at. Does anybody have any questions on the process on that?
And I'm not reading the application, I'm just looking at the pictures.
Oh, that's.
Nope, I got it.
Would you like to read the application on it?
Yes, and the pictures turned out really nice.
Yeah, they are
We
nice.
bought some heavy paper so that we could, it came across the picture. And the cover sheet was color as well, but I didn't turn out for it today in color, I just put it on there.
That's nice. Thanks for doing that, Cory.
Oh, no problem, it was a lot of fun, actually. A lot of good information, a lot of insight in what we had.
Well, is it fair to say that Michigan Main Street program, I guess I'm a little confused, but are they the ones, they're the ones that approve our DDA?
No,
No.
no.
No, okay, because you're saying at our approval.
That we're approval into their program, so we can use their resources.
Okay,
So that's what we're after. We want their resources. We want to know how they get the volunteers. We want to know how they
Fundraising
do their fundraising. We want to know how they develop their downtowns and make it look so darn cool.
and their connections.
Yeah, we want those connections. And so being part of this is free. It
are
doesn't
we
cost
waiting for any approval from anything state-related
Nope,
that
nothing.
that's necessary for us to move forward?
With the Main Street program part of things, yes, we have to wait till January
I
on that.
understand that.
As far as anything else, no.
Okay,
Well, but we do have to get our plan together.
Yes, and that is actually one of the items here that we're going to talk about.
okay.
On a new business. So then back to Google Drive. That is set up, I sent everybody whose emails I had, the username and password to access that. I set it up as a read-only, I think, at this point. I didn't want it to be accidentally deleted if somebody didn't know how to use it quite right, or if they opened it up and started editing something, and then all of a sudden, we've got incorrect information on it. So, as long as that's okay, it'll continue to be that way.
Absolutely.
There's that. It might be upside down, I'm gonna put it in there wrong. Does anybody have any questions on the Google Drive?
For the people that aren't Google Drive savvy, are we using emails for them to?
I'm handing out board packets still, so that's everything. If you want something on Google Drive, it should probably be emailed directly to me or Lisa as the secretary. It'll get added to the Google Drive. And then board packets once a month until everybody's comfortable with it. And we'll just hand those out. And I'll have those up at the shop for the time being, until we figure out something different, the board packets. Unless somebody has questions or would like to do that differently. Good? We'll move on to the next thing. Because we're already an hour and 15 minutes into it, I wanted to discuss ideas for growth opportunities for the next year, marketing events, and talk about all the cool stuff the chamber's got going on. But I might wanna see if anybody wants to postpone that for next time, so we can have some real discussion in regards to that.
So what, I moved to table, whatever?
Yeah, postpone is the proper way, according to the meeting I went to, but we moved to postpone it till
I'll
next
second
week.
that.
Alright, whatever I moved to, she seconded.
Okay, so I have a motion by Fox to postpone this item,
Seconded by Zelenak.
seconded by,
Seconded.
yep, Zelenak, to save this for next time.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Which would be window night, which we cannot meet on that night.
Yeah, that's under number
Just
new
got that
business.
under number
Yes,
10.
yeah.
DDA letter to public. Melissa asked that I put that on the agenda, and I'm gonna let her run with that.
Well, Randy and I finished this some
She did
time
this.
ago, and as we left off at the last meeting, it was gonna be, it's in the minutes where you've read that we would disperse it to the public, but I think after we looked at it, we thought about it, we think that more people should look at it, of course, the board. The chamber has had copies of it, the planning commission and the village council have all looked at it. I happened to have coffee with Ben Williams, 2 weeks ago or whatever, and I had a copy, so I asked him to look at it. I respect his opinion very much, and he's an important person in the community. So this is just a draft. It says draft all over it. It's totally open to changes. The quotes that are in it come from, reputable sources that we're mostly familiar with. So if everybody can just look at it, make their comments. This is not, I don't see this as being the only letter that the DDA is ever gonna send out. Maybe we'll have a newsletter quarterly or something that keeps people informed. So this is just here we are, we're moving, and, share your thoughts within this letter.
If I could just make a comment, I would prefer to see all drafts kept within the board and not anybody else, because once they're out, they're out. And you can write draft all over it, but everybody's got it, and they start to forget a month or two from now that it was a draft. But they read it somewhere that something happened. I think the draft should be kept within the board until they're released as a board.
I agree.
Well, as we left it, as we discussed, we were just gonna put it out there, so, I respect that and.
And I think it's, since we're so new, we're only a couple months into this, and we're all still learning, I think that it's good that the community is aware of what's going on. But maybe, maybe that, do we need a policy or something like that about communication from the DDA, or when we need a procedure that we follow, because we don't have one in place yet. So maybe that's something we want to consider for the next time or something. But I love this letter. I think I like that you pulled in resources that are, like you said, reputable, and didn't,
I think in respect for what Melissa's saying, though, she was trying to get resources within our community to try to create this too, though.
right,
So,
right. But I like it that it respects our intelligence,
Well, so if everybody can take a peek at it, I don't think it's anything that we gotta rush and put forth today, so make notes on it, and maybe when we see each other again, we'll have it all ready to turn into the final product and distribute.
Sweet.
Don't take this the wrong way, I think it's a great letter, but sometimes, we all sit here, we read it, and we've been through a lot of this, we've heard a lot about DDAs and TIFs and read a lot, and then you hand when you hand a letter to somebody, you gotta be careful what's in it, because, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but if you give people a lot of information sometimes, they see it in different ways than we do. And I don't wanna scare people into what a DDA is, or what a tax increment financing program is. And I'm not saying they don't understand, I'm saying they've never seen it. We've seen it, we've talked about it, we've discussed it. Sometimes maybe it's better to feed them slower.
Well, my thinking in giving it to the planning commission, the village council, these are all people that have some awareness and knowledge of it. So it wasn't like I was trying to freak the world out by any means. It was just, take a look at this, let me know what you think, I respect your opinion.
So are we thinking too, maybe like ultimately have like a communication level that is, you know, for other, like, not municipalities, but other entities, and then one that's more of a public, like basic,
Yeah.
less vocabulary, or what?
I just think, especially from what I heard, people are kind of scared of a DDA, and I don't know why they are. They really do. They have some impressions that aren't true. So I think we have to be careful how we first present it to them.
Is it required that we submit a letter to the community?
It's probably a good idea that we talk
I
to
We
them.
should.
I definitely think we should. I
Well,
definitely
let
think
me
we
ask
should.
this versus putting it in the newspapers. I mean, like
I
the
think-
Hampton County and our local paper that Melissa's part of now, or?
I think if you definitely want to reach out to them, I mean to interrupt, but a letter to them does the job way better than newspaper.
Yeah.
That's not taking
Yeah,
anything
no,
from
I
newspapers,
totally
but.
agree. I think we definitely need to do a letter, and, you know, as we
And
mentioned at the
newspaper.
last meeting, giving it to them. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like we're gonna do 1,000 letters by any means. It's,
Right.
here's your letter, Bart Patton or whomever. and-
Yeah, you know, maybe they can be left out at local businesses and stuff
Right.
too, or
Right.
mailed or however, but I just,
You know, it'd be kind of neat, I mean, if we're talking, because of the common misperceptions or fears or whatever, it would be kind of neat to hand deliver the letters and say, if you have any questions, give me a call, or come into the store and we'll talk, you know, and do you have any questions right now? And
We can all take a little
Yeah.
staff to give
yeah,
to people.
because I
Oh, yeah.
feel educated enough, sort of, with this to say, don't worry, we're not gonna tear down your house
that,
or
yeah.
Right, right.
buy
You don't want
it
to
or
form their
something, you
opinion
know.
based on,
Ryan,
anytime you
you
mention the word tax or anything like that, people,
Well, the reason I
Go through the
use the
roof.
quotes, I mean, they were, at this point, not all of us know every single thing there is to know about a DDA, so I wasn't comfortable saying, well, Kenny said this is a DDA, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's exactly why I use the quotes directly from the website as written, without me putting my opinion in it.
Right,
I think that's good.
Right.
a couple, kind of maybe to wrap up some of, yeah, agree, we should probably go ahead and like hand deliver around your area, if you're in and around town and stuff. The letter idea is good. And that's what struck me too, was having the quotes on there. Even knowing the stuff, it doesn't really make sense sometimes as a quote level. And so probably maybe not put it on there right now. I definitely like the front part and explaining the general idea to people, because that's kind of what what it's supposed to do.
Well, it could be, you know, phase one is here's the letter, phase two is more information.
Well,
If
that's
more
what I was-
months, there's more information, so.
Well, the other
Just
thing you
keep
can do is
putting
you can
something
invite
out
them in
there.
after the letter's out, the next
Right.
meeting, and have a time to discuss that, if anybody would like to come in.
Right, and the kicker is, you know, first Wednesday of the month, 7 p.m. at the Central Lake Government Center. That's great stuff. Then everybody feels, you gave them a letter, they're
Right.
invited to come out. Hopefully get more people in there, and that's
Well, maybe we should just do the cover letter, fill in the blanks, and then work on the rest of the stuff, that way we can get it out within.
I would
a short
I would
period of
add
time.
maybe the map that people kind of
Put the
understand,
map on the
so they
back.
know if they're really like am I in this DDA? Who's in the DDA? What's going on?
I
They
would
don't
like.
understand.
Didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, and I agree. Just
Well, we
maybe a
can just take
2-page.
this whole back part off and let it be,
Okay,
let it be this.
I make a proposal that we all look it over next month. Can we have a little more time to discuss this?
Mhm.
And that way we move forward tonight, gives us all a month to still work on this.
That might be a really good idea. I'd like to say one more thing before we vote on that, or we decide to go ahead with anything like that. Good job. I mean, the letter it's a good idea. There's a lot of very positive things in here. What everybody said, I like having the resources on there, I like having the map. I don't care for some of the quotes so much. I don't care for so much talk about taxes, as Mr. Kruse was talking about. It doesn't mention anything about historic preservation. It doesn't mention anything about events. It doesn't mention anything about making a development plan that will encompass all of Central Lake. It does not talk, or all of the downtown area. It does a little bit maybe. It doesn't talk about volunteers. I thought it was good, and when I saw it, my first thing was, okay, well, how would I do this? Would I do this differently? And I did draft a letter of my own, trying to see what I would, want to see out there to the public. And so I did make a copy of that, and I do have it to distribute if people want to see it. It's just a different take on the same idea. I'm not trying to take over or do anything. It's just something to compare and contrast, and maybe give some more ideas when we all come back next time and sit and talk about how we want to present this to the community, and it might help. I'm not trying to take over anybody's job or anything. I want to kind of get other ideas out there. So I do have that.
Well, I'd strongly encourage, I know we've been here already, to get a letter done tonight, a rough draft so we can get out, because I've been on board where you put it off for a month, and then we get here next month, and somebody says, I really don't like that, can we tweak it another month, and another, and
Especially considering next month is December.
It's December and into
then
January, so.
First, yeah.
I mean, I think we could all throw some ideas out pretty quick, maybe we could come up with a nice little letter out to the community. Yeah, I would love to personally, there's just been so much talk about a DDA, I think the quicker we get behind it and make people aware.
And again, that's just my process for trying to figure out how my thoughts on how we should present ourselves out there to the public. It matters as much as what we say is how we say it. We could say, when we do downtown development plan, we're gonna do a TIF, we're gonna do this, that sounds great. But that's not all encompassing and asking and talking about all the different things and aspects that we're going to be working on.
I made a suggestion that maybe we had two people that did drafts. Why don't you guys get together and take the best of both worlds, or what you both agree on, and put that together and have it get it to Ken.
Yeah, because we can correspond with each other by email or Google Drive, and if everybody says that looks great, I would feel more comfortable.
Yeah, I agree, if you guys wanna talk about it, Melissa, and then,
Yeah, that'd be great.
put together a,
Easy peasy.
Find a way to join them together and send it.
go in a week or two before next meeting then.
Well, do we still need as a board, to, as a board, approve this letter?
I
The two
trust them
coordinate
to do
next
that.
month then, before we send it?
No, I think if we tell them to go ahead and, between the two of them, join the letters and then send it, we've already.
Some of his stuff
approved
kind of it overlaps, some of your stuff overlaps, I mean, you might have to do some font changes, but you got the info right here.
And that's something, when I was looking at the original one, I threw together in a half hour, 45 minutes off of what I know of the downtown, and the DDA stuff, and the Main Street stuff. So, I mean,
Okay, so a letter can actually probably be done in another couple of weeks, correct?
oh yeah, certainly.
So why don't we,
So you're looking next couple of days, right?
Yeah, what day is it? Today's Wednesday. Let's shoot for Monday, because I know I've got a busy day tomorrow and Friday.
I'm not very familiar with how much of the town areas, but I would be glad if somebody wants to divide up the, handing them out, I'll take a section.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to hand me some, give me an area, a list, that's what I'm getting at. I'll be glad to do my part of getting them out.
I think we can get the addresses, and what I'll do is
I'll walk around doing it.
yep, we'll just
Okay.
talk to you.
Okay.
Figure it out.
You gotta find me,
Well,
maybe.
let's
Dodge City
target,
yesterday.
let's plan on doing it
Felt like
like
Matt Dillon.
Saturday. I can do it. I mean,
Right, hand it off.
yeah, and educate our employees, so if people come in and ask at the stores or whatever, where we are.
Sure, I think it's something that should be left at public places too. I think people will be interested in it, and especially to see something new and difference coming out.
Right, right.
And I don't know if it'd be possible to publish it in the paper. I mean, that would be,
Well, yeah.
a free press for the DDA.
Martin and Bart,
Yeah,
Yeah.
update or
and get
whatever.
it to them, and then they.
Yeah, and get it out there, get some positive press about the Downtown Development Authority. That's really,
I would suggest also mailing it out,
Yeah,
because that way everybody gets it, and you're not gonna do it when somebody's home, somebody's not. Somebody got it, somebody didn't.
So you're
If
suggesting
you
mail
mail it
versus
out,
hand?
everybody's got it, and then in the letter, invite them to the next meeting, give them the date and the time,
Okay.
you know.
that's a
So we're
good
talking
idea.
I
about
would-
Are you just
all
talking
residents?
to people inside the,
The
Well,
district.
the mailing goes to the DDA, or area.
okay.
And I think we've got those
That's what I would
parcels.
do.
We have the parcel owners, but I don't know if we have like tenants and so forth.
I would be willing to contribute a certain amount of money for postage for that.
All right, we'll talk about that, that's
Okay.
something we can do, and we can
And
also
thank you guys both for
First Village.
coming together on this.
Yeah, that'd be
The work
great.
that you've already done.
I'm looking forward to it.
Talk to the mailing goes to the DDA area property owner,
Yeah, that's the address that I have for the property owners.
but we want the letters distributed community-wide.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Correct.
I was
Village?
thinking
Village?
you'd be, well,
Oh my
if we're
gosh.
gonna mail
We
them,
can use the newspaper to reach the community, but we can mail to the DDA, which is a smaller area and
Okay.
less money.
And then I think letters should be like into businesses, like if people wanna hand them out, I mean, the whole village needs to know about the DDA, so the more we can get out through the
We need
chamber.
a crier.
What
We need a
what
village
about a
crier.
press release or
Corner.
talking to the Antrim Review as well?
don't you have an extra
Yes, I was
employee?
gonna say, can we do the
Don't you
interim
have a kid?
review?
That way
I
everybody,
do.
that way it's out there. And anything that's positive is good for our town
Okay.
to do, so if, does everybody say it's okay for the Antrim Review as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Put a copy of the letter in? Yeah.
Okay, who's gonna take responsibility to contact the interim review?
I'll do that.
Okay. After
Well,
you
the
two
one
have
thing I
got the
wanna
letter.
say, in looking at Cory's letter and looking at mine, you know,
You have two papers.
it needs to be a little bit more condensed, a little more shorter, I would think, especially if we're gonna try to publish them in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Because they may not wanna take a,
2,000-page document, or 2,000
so,
word
and
document.
also, no offense, Cory, but I'd like to see it signed from the board. The
Yeah,
entire-
Yeah,
that's
that's just
fine.
you.
I just did that like weeks ago when I was
Because
sitting
dude, you're
down
gonna
there.
drive yourself nuts if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like the only one to do
No, no, no,
everything, like.
I just threw that together, so that's nothing more than a rough draft. I'm like, I'll bring that tonight, I need some copies.
Don't worry about the board signing it. Is that what you're
Not
saying?
signed, just
No,
have
I
to
mean,
say
they're
it from the
coming
board.
from the
So
board.
it's like
Yeah,
DDA.
it's-
Coming
Oh,
from
yeah,
the
yeah,
entire
yeah.
board.
Yeah, not from one
That's,
individual.
that'd be perfect.
Yep, and we have to be careful posting our meeting dates, right, because they're only confirmed for this year.
That's an
Yeah.
agenda item.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
If I could add with the letter, I don't know if you have enough time, but if you could, a lot of people are asking for a map, a good map. And I know the one in the letter is kind of, it's not really easy.
He's got another new one, well, that's his printer.
I've got we've got a digital copy of the map and it's much clearer, much nicer.
Yeah, these are just drafts that it wasn't
What would
printed on.
happen,
It's a one of
is it
those.
possible to like go into Google, Earth and maps and like print out and then draw where it is?
Not easily, not
The
professionally.
digital map isn't bad, we could probably post
I've
that
got this,
somewhere.
actually it's a little bit
Isn't
different.
that,
They're right
isn't
there.
that pretty clear,
Yep.
Matt?
We'll put that right in the back.
Okay.
That's from equalization?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's straight
that's
from
the
equalization.
official equalization one,
Yeah,
That
it's a
we
great idea to
included
have a map on there.
that we included with the Main Street.
And it shows the parcels that are kind of hard to see, but you can see that
And
they're on there.
people can figure out where they are,
Yeah.
probably.
Pretty close.
So I don't think that would be necessarily an issue to include. The hard thing is, like, this was printed off color print, it's starting to get expensive printing all this color, so,
We won't.
you're gonna have a hard time seeing that in black and white, because those red lines look like black lines when they're printed.
Kids to color them for us.
So that
There
might
we
be a
go.
problem.
Take them to school with you.
Yeah, I can get them done in 20
Let your kids do it. Yeah.
So-
Here's one more thing, Rick. When we talk about mailings and this and that, and all these little costs, of course, by the end of the year, they add up.
Mhm.
So the council's gonna prepare their budget soon, so the DDA is gonna have to come up with a number they give that they'd like to see.
$1 million.
He's like 50%.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can tell you the answer to that one. No, but I mean, because they're gonna have to put it in their budget, because there's no other funding available right now, so
When is their budget to be completed by?
we're gonna ask for numbers by the end of November from all the committees.
Holy smokes.
Oh.
We need numbers at our next meeting.
We're not even gonna have time to our next meeting to do that.
Let's talk about it now.
Well, I'm not even sure I'll come about that, so we will talk about the end of November for budget.
Okay, do we need to close up or make a proposal?
I guess, you know,
Motion to move past the DDA now?
yes, well,
What's the letter?
I think the motion, okay, so,
I don't mean to interrupt, I think if they're just old business and new business, you don't need motions, you're not truly
there's.
acting on anything and voting, you know what I mean?
It's board
You just discuss it,
discussion.
move on,
Okay.
and discuss it, move
So are
on.
we?
That's my
Yeah, she's
interpretation.
got it wrote down.
We're done with the DDA letter?
Yeah, we're done with the DDA letter to public unless somebody has something else they'd like to add.
Okay.
Okay, we will move on. Melissa and I will work on that. Monday is about the best day right now
That's
for me.
perfect for me.
All right, I'll get a hold of you via email. We'll set a time, either do it via email or we can meet in person at my shop or elsewhere. New business. Reschedule the December and January meeting. The December meeting is scheduled for December 4th, which happens to be window night, which a lot of us downtown probably don't have available because we'd rather be at our businesses or elsewhere that night.
We have.
Yeah, it's required. So I'd like to move the December meeting to the next day, so we keep it within the same week.
Thursday at 7?
Thursday at 7. I've talked to Judy about that particular day, and she says that that would be available.
As of last week when we talked.
As of last week when we spoke with her. It may change or something may be going on there.
So that's Thursday, December 7th?
Whatever.
No, it's the
Fifth.
It's
fifth.
the
Good, because Pearl Harbor Day, I do not do stuff.
Thursday, December 5th. At 7 PM. So I would like to move that we move the December meeting to Thursday, December 5th at 7 PM.
I would second that.
That works with me.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The other day that does not work is January, and I apologize, I don't have the date right.
For the
First.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to move that, and I've not talked to them about that date. There's some mix-up with our schedule. We voted to have them on the first Wednesday of the month in this meeting room, and the township does not schedule anything for the next year until they get some information from the county. So as of right now, we're still kind of tentatively scheduled for that first Wednesday of the month going forward, but I won't know until closer to December. So I'm not exactly sure what to do on that. It was kind of left up in the air a little bit on their end, and I'm just trying to relay that to the board. I'm not entirely sure how we should proceed with that.
I'd suggest, yeah, because it's kind of a big holiday weekend-ish. Would people plan on being here for a Thursday or Friday meeting off the top of your head, or would it maybe?
I think the following week, because I think a lot of people are going out of town.
Yeah,
So
they'll
the
still be
eighth,
coming back from vacation.
The second week in January, would that be something? we're
8th and
available?
9th, second Wednesday, second Thursday are always bad. We've got planning commission and building council.
Okay, what about the third
Like a
Wednesday?
Monday, Tuesday?
Then if you go to the third Wednesday, you might skip the whole month. I
Right,
mean, my opinion,
I
you know,
mean,
you
well,
should
is
have,
it
yeah, then you get into
possible
the
to
township.
just not have a meeting?
You can
It
cancel
is.
the meeting.
it
As far as
is.
I know,
Is
we
it the
only have
location that's the
6
problem, or
Yes,
the
it is,
days? Why would
it
you
is,
do it at the
actually,
library?
That's true. It is the location that's the problem. And so we could meet at the library. We could meet,
Well, actually, it's the 2 dates right now are the problem, right?
well, 2 dates for this place.
Anything-
I would wait
Well, 2 dates you are.
from what I would just wait and see what we hear from the township as for.
We
the
might know
dates.
something by the next
You know what I mean?
meeting. We
Yeah.
might hear back from Judy by the
I
next
think
meeting.
it'll all
So if we just hold off
filter out fine.
on
Yeah.
changing the January one
I think it
until
will,
at
yeah.
least the next meeting, maybe we'll know.
So let's go ahead and postpone voting on the January meeting, date change until the next meeting. And that way we can get notices out. And can you make a note of that? We gotta put a notice out at least 18 hours before
That
that meeting
that it's been canceled,
That it's
or
been-
that it's been
changed.
changed, but we don't know what date it's been changed.
Well, the December 5th one, we do.
Right, right.
So we have to put a notice out 18 hours before, I believe. Or earlier. All right, does anybody else have any questions on that? All right, next thing I have on the agenda.
Time out.
Oh,
Do we have to motion to postpone the January change?
Not till the December meeting, right?
We don't have to motion that?
we only made one decision, so that's fine. We only decided in December one, I'm sure it's fine. Let's move ahead. The next thing is the downtown development plan. It is the reason, one of the main things we have to have is a DDA. We need to discuss it, we need to vote that we're gonna go ahead on it, we need to figure out what our next step is to move ahead with that.
I think that maybe probably the easiest step would be to look and see what other municipalities have, what their plans are, and just,
Copy theirs.
no, borrow, adapt,
Really, you let the kids in class borrow?
if they cite their sources.
I'm gonna have to answer
Pay
that.
for our teacher's debt.
Cite their sources. But, you know, no, I
Well,
mean,
it's
Well,
not
at
need to
least you
reinvent the wheel, there's plenty of plans.
Right.
out
Gives you a
there.
sample to go by.
Well,
so you
sure.
can figure out what
Sure.
If you look in the Google Drive, there is a folder that has the Elk Rapids and the, I wanna say the Boyne City plan, I may be mistaken, it might be East Jordan. Plans on there and what they've done.
mhm.
But there's their plans, but I'm sure they had to have market studies and other things done in order to you know, we can't just, hey, we'll just fill in the blanks and move some stuff around. I mean, there was some
And the
information
market studies are things, the types of resources that we can use.
from,
From
If anything, all of us
Michigan
looking at other plans is only gonna help us understand
Right.
it better, so everybody ought to take a peek
so
in different places.
pretty much start, oh, Bryan?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna say along those lines, if we could maybe break up and figure out, like, I know I go to East Jordan's and get their plan and check it out, if someone wants to get out Rapids, Boyne City, or some of these local areas, Charlotte, Boyd, Bel Air, the case may be, and then by our next meeting, maybe have a better understanding, we can bring those plans in, or put them on the Google Drive, and people can look at them. That's what
A lot of them are posted online, we were able to
Yeah,
find,
you look up DDA and
we were
there's
able
a
to
ton
find
of.
several of them online.
South Rapids?
Elk Rapids was on there,
Was it?
I didn't dig
Okay.
it for it, but I found it.
What do they say for a plan? I guess I'm confused on whether we're talking about a TIF.
No, you have to have a downtown development plan before you can even start discussing a TIF.
But you're gonna.
For the TIF.
Yes.
So DDA
Right.
does not, we're not required to have
A
a
plan.
plan as a DDA.
Correct.
Correct.
If we
Only
if we want to have TIF.
To have a TIF. So we're actually talking about the first step of forming a TIF.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
does anybody have
Oh.
any experience or information on that? They can explain that in any way.
Explain what a TIF is. I can try. You can help me along the way. The TIF is where we capture increases in tax dollars and keep them within the downtown area. In order to do that, you have to submit, I believe it's a 20-year plan on how much money what you plan on doing with the money you expect to capture.
And who do we submit that plan to?
State of Michigan.
State of Michigan?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just because we have a plan doesn't mean we'll go on to the TIF, but it's the first step in heading that direction.
Yes.
Getting the authority to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But one of my questions is, you know, we don't have any money, we don't have any way to generate any money at this point. And so, is part of our plan that we will, like the plan perhaps, would be that we would conduct various studies? Or would we make the plan based on information gained from studies?
Probably.
I might have to look at other.
We would, yeah, I want to see what other people do.
Oh, okay,
I think we could get a general layout, but like she said, we're not gonna go out and copy Boyne City.
right.
Or East
Right,
Jordan, or,
right.
I mean, you were on a DDA, probably part of the TIF, but I can just see where it's gotta be site-specific to our town.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice to see theirs, but we're gonna have to say, what do we wanna do in our downtown area to spend the money? Do we wanna improve the sidewalks? Do you wanna improve the buildings? Do you wanna paint the building? I think it's gotta get real specific for Central Lake, and where you see it in 5 years, and.
Well, more than anything else, it would give you a format for putting it together. So you know
Yeah,
the structure
look
of
at
how
their
they did
format,
it,
correct.
and then you adapt that to where you are.
Yeah. I'd love to see what to look at, see that's what it should look like at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
And then we have to put Central Lake all
Well,
through it.
surely the Main
Well, then-
Street lady would have some input
She
on
did
this.
mention it, because I wrote it down, so she
Right.
did mention that they help with the DDA plan. Now, obviously, that's 2 or 3 months out before we're even
I'm sure.
starting talking.
Northern
I'm
Lakes
sure
would probably be,
Sarah
I would call
Christensen,
Sarah.
yeah,
Too,
Sarah would be a
right.
great
would be able to help
probably.
out too.
Who was the first lady that did the first meeting?
Sarah Christensen.
Okay.
So, I think what we need first is a formal decision that we're gonna move ahead with a downtown development plan. And so I would like to move that we proceed with the initial steps of developing this plan.
Second that motion.
Which are,
Yeah, we're gonna discuss.
Exploratory research, figure out what we're doing. And so the initial steps are to understand what we need to
What
get,
it looks like.
what it looks like, what's, the formula for creating the plan. Well, what are we
The
after?
types of studies that we need to be looking at, the places
So we're not
that.
reinventing the wheel.
Yes.
But that was, I mean, that was going back to my question though. And I guess we'll have to look at plans to see, but, you know, with no money and no way to raise any right now, if we say studies, we're gonna have to find resources that'll do them for free,
And
right?
Northern Lakes Economic Alliance loves to look up information
Okay.
and find stuff. I mean, they found all kinds of crazy stuff for us. And they'd probably be a really good resource for, a lot of stuff's probably been done, maybe not.
Well, you're
specific-
looking for a 20-year, you're not looking for how you finance
Right,
it. It's
right.
just what you wanna
Right.
do and how you wanna do
right,
it.
right,
Yeah.
right.
What's
But
the
I-
best case scenario for the
Other
downtown?
towns.
can we have Sarah come back here and do that for us? Give us a little primer on what the,
I can talk to
Next
her and
steps
see if she
you know, because we can all spend this next month going all over the place bonkers, but still not be anywhere next month.
and I'm not sure what her schedule is, so we don't necessarily plan on that, but let's go ahead and move ahead with, researching it, finding out what we've got going on, and come back to the next meeting within a better understanding of what next steps need to go
Well, this
forward.
is something that's not gonna be done in 30 days either.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
we
right,
start to do it, but
right.
it may take the next 6 months to actually get something that we're
Right.
happy with and looks good that we want
Right.
to submit.
Right, that's why we get the, you know, like you said, the format of how they did it, what they're looking at, how they got it laid out for the next 5, 10, 20 years, how they started off, fundraising or market studies, whatever, maybe where they put that in their plan. Yeah, I think we just start getting, you know, we only have, 10 communities around here to really copy from what they did that we know. Just kind of look and see.
Just gotta get
Well,
ourselves educated.
Brittany said there's only 40 communities that are involved in Main Street.
At the certain level.
No,
No,
that-
that was,
that's
that was
total.
That was total.
Total.
And 23 at the associate level, I think she said, and 10
And at the upper
at the upper,
echelon there.
but yeah,
There's
40
other
total.
DDAs and stuff out there.
Yes, there's other
Yes,
DDAs
just-
that aren't part of
Just
the Main
not
Street
included in
program
the Michigan Main
that
Street
are,
program.
yeah.
Okay, so there could be more than 40.
Yes,
What you're saying.
there should be a
Those
lot of
ones are
communities
just the
that have
ones
DDAs.
involved in the Michigan Main Street.
Traverse City has got a great DDA. The information at the Traverse City level, they do a lot, they've done a lot. They actually had 2 different districts at one point. I don't know if we still do.
So the motion is to research, just to
The motion is
begin
to-
working on it.
To begin, to,
Begin researching and figuring out what we gotta do next. Generic,
I made a
generic
motion,
motion.
I made a motion to proceed with the downtown development plan, the beginning steps of the downtown development plan. It was seconded by Reis, there was discussion, and want to have a roll call vote? Or do we just all in
Can
favor?
I hear the motion again,
With the,
please?
No, I move that we proceed with the downtown development plan, the initial stages of it.
And what is that movement? Is it us individually as a board trying to do some research?
As a board, to go ahead and do the initial stages, such as research, so we know what we have to do by the next meeting.
Okay,
So that's what I want us.
and you will contact Sarah.
And I will contact Sarah and see if she has time to be at the next meeting and can help us with that. Or
Would
point
you
us to
like-
somebody else that will.
Do you want me to call Sarah? Because, no offense, but I'm seeing you grab a lot, and you're a businessman too, and I am a businessman, and so we're all busy.
If you
So if
would
you
like
want,
to,
I will take that. If you can give me a phone number, I'd be glad to talk.
I will get you in that phone number.
Okay,
Because that would be.
You got a deal, buddy, you got a deal.
okay,
So go for it, Randy.
all right.
And so, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. So we're gonna start that. Does anybody have anything else to add to that?
add to that motion or to the agenda?
To anything before we go to
Well,
public
the only
comment?
thing that, I mentioned this in an email to Cory, but the agenda was already done and we sort of blew past this, but on the next agenda, if we could put on there some procedure, policy, bylaws, that, so that we're not running into awkward situations with communication or who's doing this or who's doing what,
I will add it to the next agenda.
that would be good.
Okay. And then, next item is public comment.
No, the next time is who's gonna bring a dollar figure to the village council?
Oh, we didn't talk about that.
I already told you dollar figure.
End of November
I'll
budget.
take it, but I'm pretty sure it's not gonna float.
Does anybody have any
Run it by
experience,
the board, we'll see.
does anybody have any experience developing budgets? Brian?
Where's the treasurer?
He could make it tonight.
I'll give him that job.
Is it volleyball?
Treasurer.
We need to,
Give
we
me an
don't,
idea
how
of
can
what-
we gotta know what we'd even spend money on, I mean, right now, all.
Not
we
much,
spend
I
money
can
on
tell you
is
now,
postage.
bare bones, you're not gonna get much.
Well,
You can get postage and mailing
$100
one, I mean,
for
seriously.
stamps.
But
Yeah.
it's gonna be a
That's what it's
minimal
saying right
amount.
now.
It's
What do
not
the
like they're
chambers
gonna
spend?
put up thousands of dollars.
We're
Why
talking
don't you just- why
postage
doesn't
and-
the village just say, okay, DDA, we're gonna give you $1,000?
Well, because, they need to know where we
We have to
want to
ask
spend
for
it
it.
You
on.
need to request,
Postage is basically.
That's what we're talking about, but they
need.
still wanna see it in their budget,
Yeah.
so
Well, let me
it's
ask
more
this.
accountable.
Let me ask this. What about travel expenses for the Michigan Main Street program? Would the village be willing to fund a portion, maybe half of those expenses for the board, for example? If we could figure out what those would cost.
I believe DDA members cannot be paid by state statute.
He's talking
I'm
about.
not talking
the
reimbursed.
gas and the
Expenses.
hotel.
No, not then you're crossing.
I
He's
mean,
talking about gas in the hotel, I think.
yeah, I mean, I'm talking
She said that
expenses,
would come out of our own pocket.
because that was
If
one
you
of the
gotta
questions.
drive a
Otherwise, the
strike for a
DDA board,
conference
for
or
the
something,
DDA.
then-
well, it
Fund
can
would
come
pay
out of
for it.
anybody's pocket.
Right.
I mean, if the village is
Right.
willing and able to do that, they can do that.
One of the questions on the application was if we had a budget for travel and expenses, and I had answered no. But if we had even a portion of that covered, 25% of that covered, if 3 of us go down, and they're able to cover a quarter of it, that's better than us paying a full price out of our pockets.
No, we haven't even looked at the budget.
Well,
Just throw a token amount, like $100 a month or something to.
right, I think that budget-wise, I mean, you already mentioned the cost of printing and color and things like that. I think that, something really minor, but that would cover postage for communication until we are
You
able
can
to.
sell cupcakes to buy hotel rooms.
Cupcakes for hotel rooms that
we were
we
just
signed.
Or-
A lot of nice rooms will sell a lot of cupcakes.
You don't
Then you
have
don't
to.
know. I don't know.
Budget. Okay, so I would recommend that we put in a request for $2,000, and that would be to cover the postage and or any expenses for the DDA board.
I think that's a good idea.
I think that's a fair amount, that's less than $200 a month, but that's good, that's really close to what we might spend.
We'll see where we fall in the pecking order.
So do we need to have a motion to proceed with this, to formally ask, or you just gonna put it
I
in?
just want a number to
Well,
pick
yeah,
the
we should
budget.
make a motion, right, it's money.
But we're not spending it.
We're not spending it, we're just asking.
We're just gonna go to his board to do it.
Yeah, here's what we want to do, start out with $1 million.
We're gonna start out with
One
small
starts
box
first.
with like $1 million, and then we'll move on. Okay.
She's mentioned it 3 times, so it's starting to actually seem reality.
There you go,
You know,
set it up now.
$1 million.
If you get it, I'm gonna wonder where they've been hiding all this money.
No, but I think 2,000 would be a reasonable.
I do too, I honestly do, so we'll see how it works in there.
Are you sure the DDA can get money from the village? Because okay.
Yep, I actually checked that this week.
Okay.
Yep, they're allowed to be funded by municipalities.
If not, we need volunteers to make cupcakes.
But yeah, that should be early into our next
Required
year,
to buy
is seriously how we are gonna raise money within the DDA. That's gonna become a big issue to move forward with anything. Like I said, by the next time you move up a Main Street program,
You need to pay
required to
somebody.
have, which is an expense, which isn't gonna come out of village coffers.
And it doesn't say how much you have to pay that person either. You can pay them.
There's a reason you pay them.
They're looking for a
Layers.
full-time person.
Yeah,
They are.
Do it
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
a whole nother-
If we bump up,
whole
if
nother-
we bumped up to that middle tier.
And I think
And
it'd
she
be a
said
good
we can
idea.
stay at the level 1 tier as long as we need to feel comfortable.
So it could take 2 years to get up to the
Yes,
next
that's
step.
just
Or
something.
5 years
Funding
even,
is gonna be fun.
if we aren't quite where we need to be to hire somebody full-time to bump up.
So we start selling cupcakes now.
Those-
Yes,
It's
if
maybe
we
2
sell
years till it
cupcakes
goes over.
now,
I
we'll
think
have
funding
enough money.
and making steps forward on the DDA plan to set up a TIF is big, because hopefully property values in the DDA are at the lowest level now. So our biggest gain will come by setting up a TIF as soon as possible to get that as the base amount.
So that really should be a priority over the next 6 months.
6 months, like the 6 to 12,
And then-
yeah, that's a,
By some-
No, well, once that.
I got tired
downtown
of just
development
reading
plan-
what they want in that program. It's a lot of stuff to put together in the program, I'm sure, for a good 20-year plan.
Yeah, there's a
It's
lot
a lot
lot of information,
A
that's
lot.
gonna require a lot of
All
help.
right, now,
All right, so that's it, we've discussed the budget and what we're gonna get out of it anyway. On to public comment,
Can I just say one more thing on the budget? Do we need to
Sorry,
write,
Susie.
submit anything to you?
No, I would just, I will,
Almost.
that's all they want, is an amount that they can try to work out.
all good?
It would be in the minutes, he can take the minutes as back,
Yeah,
right?
it's still,
Yeah. He's good.
I would like to thank the DDA, the chambers behind you is 100%, as I've said before. We are in the process of doing packets, we're getting ready to do our membership drive. We will have each one of you a packet that we are doing for the next full year, our events, everything that's going on with the chamber. And so not only will the DDA know that, the planning commission will know it, and the village council will know it. And we have money-making projects, in the community, and if the DDA is interested in doing a money-making project, let us know, we're there to, say, okay, guys, you can take a spot. If you're talking about postage
And
stamps.
have a cupcake table.
Yeah.
on the same topic, that's a great letter you guys put out in the community, thank you.
Yeah, very nice.
Very, really, absolutely,
Hopefully monthly, we'll see what happens.
it's great.
More stuff going on than you realize.
I have a separate
Sure.
public comment. My niece came to me asking me to sign something because she's a freshman this year at Central Lake, and I did not realize that they have a volunteer program that they're trying to get the freshmen in 4 years to give, to volunteer for 400 hours and then get this medallion on their road. And she's excited about it. So I've talked to Susie. I'm going to meet with Darcy Noms, who's the guidance counselor, next week. And I'm looking forward to putting on a chamber event, hopefully February, which is gonna be the next student parent-teacher conferences, or the parent-teacher conferences, and take some of that time and talk to the students and hopefully get the organizations who need volunteers to come and speak so that the students realize what's out there. And then pick an evening to have all of them there also, so when the adults come back.
Cool.
So we're looking, so we'll want you guys, obviously,
That's very
and
nice.
we're, so
How
we're.
many, do you know how many students there are?
No, that's what I'll find out Wednesday.
Yeah.
I wanna find out, cause I was like 400 hours, guys, how many kids? All right, I've got you booked for
40-hour
the
weeks.
4 years. Exactly.
We
You're
can
mine,
build it
don't you go
down there.
anywhere else. So I was very excited to hear that, and I'm gonna try to capitalize on that as much as possible.
And that's a
Great
a great
idea.
way
It
to
is.
pull the school system
Oh,
in
yeah.
with all of us also.
And
Yeah, I
I also
like it.
know that
I
the
like it.
National Honor Society has to have X amount
They
of
have
hours
separate
too.
hours.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're.
And this
somebody to
is
have.
through United Way,
Okay.
so I know when parents get those letters, they're like, I'm not driving you to Traverse City.
No,
We'll
there's
make
lots
it
of local
convenient.
opportunities.
Yeah.
The Masons and the Historic Society.
I got some work right around my house.
Volunteer.
They have to be qualified to attend, have to be qualified volunteer programs.
All right, any other public comment?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the DDA to consider a page on the village website where you can publish your minutes and agenda, hopefully as soon as whenever you get it. Just so we know beforehand, coming to meeting, what's gonna happen, so people can look at it afterwards.
Well, I think we spoke a little bit of it last time, and we decided to hold off a little bit on our own website, but maybe we could put a
We
page
can
up.
put the
That'd be
agenda
cool.
up, surely, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
we could probably put a
public info.
page.
That'd be really neat.
I'd have to talk to the village and talk to whoever manages that website. And
Yeah, why don't you have to talk to yourself?
Ken, or, Cory.
so we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
It's a good idea, thank you. Any other public comment?
I'm sorry, I don't have your name.
I'm Brad Glasgow.
Glasgow?
Yes.
And I know you're filming us.
I'm the editor of the Central Lake News. Melissa is
Central
my
Lake News,
publisher.
Okay, so you're working with Melissa then?
Yes.
Okay. Didn't know that.
You thought he was from the National Enquirer.
I know, I thought CNN or, you know, I was kind of, you know, yeah, there you go.
Hey, dude, this is like non-DDA related, but tomorrow night, Thursday at the Charlottesville Public Library, there's gonna be a guy doing a presentation on the trail system and how to develop like snowmobile trail systems from Petoskey to Charlevoix or whatever, and it might be something that anybody here might.
Well, I was actually at the village, or the Historical Society meeting with Mr. Dawson back there. And he said he had attended a meeting about snow, like the trail system that
That's
was.
it,
trail
that's it,
system.
tomorrow at 7 o'clock at the Charlevoix Library.
And are they trying to put on an event through that, like through, was there a kayak race or something?
Yeah, we're,
That one's
Well,
separate.
tomorrow,
That's
yeah,
something
tomorrow is an
separate.
info meeting, so like, you know, if a government official could go learn how to develop this trail head system.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But it's snowmobiling,
Not kayak.
Not,
it could be anything.
he'll be taking kayak, so.
Kayaking with.
That's what I think, can scoot along.
All right, is there any other, we should probably move this along so we can close out for tonight. Any other public comment? No.
Thank you.
All right, public comment period is closed. Do we have any board comments? I think we've pretty much commented. I have nothing else to add myself. So if,
Somebody earlier was mentioning something about committees.
I think we'll wait till next time to talk
Okay,
about
so
that.
it's- I didn't see how we can try to get on that tonight.
We're right at 2 hours, and I want to try to
Okay.
keep it under that, so I didn't.
Think
add a
hard
lot
about it
extra.
for next month.
Yes, we'll discuss that maybe next month. And maybe get with me on your ideas, because or just get amongst yourselves with the ideas. I don't have,
Well, that's what, is there a way for all of us to talk to, you know, if I have an idea, can I email everybody, or how
Well,
is,
I
you know,
don't-
what's the?
My,
form of talking here.
I don't know, because I didn't necessarily want to expose everybody's emails to everybody else, so I've been blind copying everybody on what I was sending out, so that it only.
Anybody can have my email.
Anybody can have mine, I
Everybody
like
can have
corresponding through email.
Right, me
I would
too.
open them too.
Okay,
What happened to the Google?
the Google Drive is there, and I sent you information on how to get on.
Google email?
Probably for communicational, email seems a little less. Just keep it out of Google Drive, you know what I mean, if Missy's got something, she
Right.
wants to send, boom, there, everybody's got it, check
Yeah,
your
But
email.
not everybody's able to access the Google Drive, right?
Everybody's
Is
able
that
to read
correct?
it, but there's no writing to it, so, because I didn't want somebody to accidentally delete it, somebody that's not necessarily computer savvy, double clicking it and starting to type in something, and all of a sudden we've got an edited Word document that's missing.
So, but how much, I mean, are you gonna know, who is gonna know that I put something in the Google
That's
Drive
the
unless you
problem.
check it? I mean, am I gonna send you an email, Kenny, check the Google Drive?
Please
or-
don't, just send me the
I
email.
think I had it set to,
Exactly.
I think the Google Drive is set to read only, unless I screwed something up.
But no, like,
No,
she means
I'm
like.
saying, who's ever gonna know that I put something in the Google Drive
I
Oh, I
unless
see
I
what
tell
you
them?
said. I see
I
what
would
you
say,
said.
you know, just give us a
Maybe
name,
to the
it's
email
okay.
address?
Can you, someone make us an email list and share
Then
it
it
around?
opens up
She
your
just
email.
said she was talking about that, she talked about after, she
We talked about
said it to me, how does everybody find out?
I'll be
Your
honest,
email can be opened.
terrible looking at my computer.
Well,
I'll handle it with you.
But, no, I mean, I'm just apologizing in advance, I'm not always the computer guy.
You're on the road a lot too.
Yeah,
That
I
makes it
guess.
tough.
What Cory was just saying, anything that goes into the Google Drive, he has to put it in there.
Yeah, because it
Well,
is,
I wouldn't mess around with that. I'd just do it.
I thought it was set to read only, so that'll
No,
check that.
I did, I mean, it's there. I
Okay.
don't know if you got a sync to find it, or,
No,
what the deal is,
you
but
shouldn't have
it's
been able
there.
to, because I'm worried that somebody's gonna delete stuff off there. That's the
well, I
problem.
did,
Okay, I'll look at that.
it's there.
you can see the editing history though.
Can you?
Yep,
Yeah.
and then you can revert back to the last.
I don't use it for anything other than this.
So everybody's cool with sharing their email address,
Can we-
so
can we
instead
just-
of.
Make a list of our email addresses right now?
Yeah, can we hand
Yeah,
that out?
here.
Actually, I'll send it to everybody.
Cory
It'll be
has
quicker.
the list.
I'll-
Here,
We'll
just send
I'll
it.
send it off so everybody has it if you'd like, or you write it down.
Okay,
I've got
got
everybody's,
mine.
I've got Martin's and Bart's
All
too.
you gotta do is just send us a big old email and then we can just add everybody to our
Yep.
contact.
I've been blind copying everybody, so I'll just do that.
okay.
Any other comments? All right,
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
That was a high five.